The moment that split my life into before and after happened on a Tuesday evening at Giovanni's Italian restaurant, standing 3 feet from the hostess stand, watching my husband of 3 years get down on one knee in front of another woman. But let me back up 30 minutes because that's when the first crack appeared in the life I thought I knew. My phone buzzed while I was leaving the office. Bennett's name lit up the screen with a message I'd seen dozens of times before. "Stuck at work again, babe. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at those words sitting in traffic on Fifth Avenue, the evening sun making everything look gold and possible. We'd barely seen each other in weeks. He was always at the office, always in meetings, always building the dream we'd talked about since the beginning. His tech startup, the one I'd poured my savings into, the one that was finally taking off. On impulse, I decided to surprise him. I'd pick up dinner from Giovanni's, his favorite place, the restaurant where he told me he loved me for the first time. I'd bring it to his office and we'd eat together like we used to when things were simpler. The hostess at Giovanni's was a young woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. "Hi, welcome in. How many tonight?" "Actually, I'm just picking up a to-go order," I said. "But could I add something? My husband is working late and I want to surprise him." Her smile flickered just for a second. Something passed across her face that I couldn't read. "Of course," she said slowly. "What's your husband's name?" "Bennett Crawford," I said, pride still in my voice like a fool. "I want to get his favorite, the seafood linguine." Her face went pale. "Bennett Crawford?" "Yes, why? Is something wrong?" She opened her mouth, closed it, looked over her shoulder toward the dining room. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples and laughter and the smell of garlic bread. Romantic music played softly through speakers. "Ma'am," she said quietly, leaning closer. "I think you should come with me." My stomach dropped. "What's happening? Is he here? Please just follow me." She led me past the hostess stand, not into the main dining room but to the side, near the kitchen entrance where the lighting was dimmer. From there, she pointed through the archway into the restaurant. "Table 7, she whispered. "The man in the blue shirt." I looked. Bennett sat at a corner table, candlelight making his face glow. He wore the blue shirt I'd bought him for his birthday, the expensive one from the boutique downtown. On his wrist was the watch I'd saved for months to afford. His hair was styled the way I liked it. He looked happy, relaxed, leaning forward with his elbows on the table in that way he did when he was really interested in something. Across from him sat a woman I'd never seen before. She was beautiful in an effortless way, with long dark hair and a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was laughing at something he said, her hand reaching across the table to touch his. "That's been going on for about 6 months now," the hostess said quietly. "I've served them at least a dozen times. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married until you just said his name." The floor felt unsteady. 6 months? He calls her his fiancée. He made a reservation tonight for something special. I think. She trailed off, looking uncomfortable. I couldn't look away from them. Bennett reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Even from this distance, I recognized the velvet shape of a ring box. "No," I breathed. He stood up from his chair. Other diners were starting to notice. The room grew quieter. He got down on one knee. The woman in the red dress covered her mouth with both hands, tears already streaming down her face. She was nodding before he even opened the box. The restaurant erupted in applause. I watched my husband slip a ring onto another woman's finger while wearing the watch I'd bought him with money from my second job. The job I'd taken to help fund his startup. The startup that was my retirement savings and my emergency fund and every penny I'd managed to save before I met him. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The hostess touched my arm gently. "Should I call someone?" I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. Everything felt distant and foggy, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Bennett kissed her. The crowd cheered louder. Someone called for champagne. "I need to leave," I managed to say. "Of course. Is there anything I can do?" I shook my head, already backing toward the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my purse. The hostess walked me to the exit, her hand on my back like she thought I might collapse. "I'm really sorry," she said again. "If you need anything, if you need me to testify to what I've seen, here's my card." She pressed a business card into my palm. "My name is Rebecca. I mean it about testifying. What he's doing is wrong." I nodded, unable to form words, and pushed through the door into the cool evening air. Outside, the world continued like nothing had happened. Cars drove past. People walked by laughing into their phones. Somewhere a dog barked. The sky was turning purple and orange, beautiful and indifferent. I walked to my car in a daze, got in and sat there with the engine off. My phone was still in my hand. Bennett's text was still on the screen. Stuck at work again, babe. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to finish setting. Long enough for the street lights to flicker on. Long enough for my shock to slowly, carefully transform into something else. Something cold. Something clear. Something that felt strangely like relief because at least now I knew. At least now the confusion of the past months made sense. The late nights. The secretive phone calls. The way he'd stopped looking me in the eye. The way he'd stopped touching me like he meant it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't the problem. He was. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Bennett. Just got out of meeting. Heading home soon. Want me to grab food? I stared at the message, at the ease of his lies, at how practiced he'd become at deception. How many times had he texted me from that restaurant? How many times had he told me he loved me while planning a future with someone else? I started typing a response, then deleted it. Then typed again and deleted again. Finally I wrote, take your time. I'll see you at home. I hit send and started the car. The drive home was automatic. I don't remember the turns or the stoplights. I just remember the clarity settling over me like cold water washing away the fog. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg him to explain or give him a chance to lie his way out of this. I was going to be smart. I was going to be careful. And I was going to take back everything I'd given him. Inside our house, everything looked normal. The photos on the walls of our wedding day. The couch we'd picked out together. The kitchen where we'd cooked breakfast on Sunday mornings back when he still pretended to care. All of it was a lie, but it was a lie I could use. I went to our home office and turned on the computer. My hands were steady now. My mind was clear. I opened the folder where we kept financial documents and started making copies of everything. Bank statements. Business records. Receipts. Emails. I worked methodically, organizing files, taking photos with my phone of anything I couldn't copy digitally. I found our marriage certificate and made copies. I found the business incorporation papers, the ones that showed I'd invested my own money as a founding partner even though Bennett never acknowledged that publicly. I found emails from Bennett to his business partner discussing how much my investment had saved them. How my financial consulting had turned everything around. How grateful they were for my support. I found text messages I'd somehow missed before, messages he'd clearly thought he'd deleted, messages to someone named Sienna talking about our future, and when I'm finally free of this situation. This situation. That's what I was to him. A situation. 3 hours later, I had everything I needed stored on a flash drive hidden in my purse. I'd sent copies to my personal email, the one Bennett didn't have access to. I'd even sent some to my best friend Tasha with a message, "Don't open unless I tell you to. This is my insurance." The front door opened around 10 o'clock. Bennett came in carrying takeout bags and wearing that smile he used when he wanted something. "Hey babe," he said, kissing my cheek like he always did. Like he hadn't just proposed to another woman 3 hours ago. "Got your favorite from the Thai place. Thought we could eat and watch that show you like." I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man I'd loved, the man I'd sacrificed for, the man I'd believed in. The man who'd been using me this entire time. "That sounds perfect," I said, taking the bags from his hands. "Let me get plates." He settled onto the couch, pulling out his phone, probably texting her. Probably telling Sienna good night. Probably living his double life with the same ease he always had. I stood in the kitchen, dividing pad thai onto 2 plates and smiled. He had no idea what was coming. He thought I was still the woman who'd believe his lies. Still the woman who'd accept his excuses. Still the woman who'd keep funding his dreams while he built a life with someone else. But that woman died at table 7 in Giovanni's Italian restaurant. The woman carrying these plates to the living room was someone new. Someone harder. Someone who knew exactly what she was worth and exactly what he owed her. I sat down next to him and handed him his food. "How was your meeting?" I asked sweetly. "Exhausting," he lied smoothly. "But productive. I think we're close to securing that funding I told you about." The funding through Sienna's father's venture capital firm. The funding he was getting by marrying into money while still married to me. "That's wonderful," I said. "Tell me everything." And I listened to him lie for the next hour, eating Thai food and pretending everything was fine, while inside I counted every deception, cataloged every half-truth, and planned my revenge with the precision of the financial consultant he'd forgotten I was. By the time we went to bed, I'd already decided. I wasn't going to confront him tonight. I wasn't going to give him time to hide assets or create a story. I was going to build my case quietly, carefully, and completely. And when I was ready, when I had everything I needed, I was going to walk away with everything I was owed. He fell asleep easily, like men without conscience often do. I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, thinking about table 7 and the woman in the red dress and the ring on her finger. She didn't know about me. I was sure of that now. She thought she was marrying a single, successful tech entrepreneur. She didn't know she was marrying a liar who was already married to someone else. But she'd find out eventually. They both would. Because I wasn't just walking away. I was taking everything with me when I left. 3 years ago, I met Bennett Crawford at a networking event for tech startups. I was there representing the financial consulting firm I worked for, looking for potential clients, wearing my favorite green blazer and the confidence of someone who knew their worth. He was standing alone by the coffee table, looking lost in a sea of entrepreneurs who all seemed more polished and prepared than he did. His presentation had just bombed during the pitch session. I'd watched from the back of the room as investors asked questions he couldn't answer, as they shook their heads and moved on to the next hopeful founder. "Rough crowd," I said, pouring myself coffee beside him. He laughed, but it was hollow. "That's one way to put it. I thought I was ready. Turns out I don't know anything about running a business." "You know your product though," I said. "Your software idea is solid. You just need help with the financial side." His eyes lit up. "You think so? Everyone else seems to think it's hopeless." "It's not hopeless. It's just underdeveloped. The bones are good. You need someone to help you build the structure around it." We talked for 2 hours that night. About his vision for project management software that used artificial intelligence to predict timeline problems before they happened. About how he'd been working on it for 2 years in his tiny apartment, coding every night after his day job. About how he'd sunk his savings into development and was now broke, desperate, and running out of time. I should have seen the red flags then. The way he talked about money like it was something other people had, something he deserved but couldn't quite grasp. The way he looked at me when I mentioned my successful consulting career, like I was a solution to all his problems. But I didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. Because Bennett Crawford, for all his financial incompetence, was charming. He was passionate about his work. He listened when I talked about financial projections and market analysis like I was speaking a beautiful foreign language. He made me feel brilliant. And maybe, after years of being the smartest person in every meeting but never getting the recognition I deserved, I wanted someone to look at me the way he did. Like I was magic. We started meeting for coffee to discuss his business. I helped him rebuild his pitch deck. I created financial models showing potential investors what his software could do with proper funding. I introduced him to people in my network. Within 3 months, his presentation went from disaster to impressive. Within 6 months, he had a small seed investment from a local angel investor. Within 8 months, he was hiring his first employees. And somewhere in those 8 months, coffee meetings turned into dinners. Business conversations turned personal. Professional respect turned into something I thought was love. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he told me one night over pasta at Giovanni's, the restaurant that would later break my heart. "You saved my company. You saved my dream." "We're a good team," I said. "We're more than that." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Amara, you're the most incredible woman I've ever met. You're brilliant and beautiful and you see something in me that no one else does. I know this is fast but I love you. I think I've loved you since the night we met." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at City Hall. My best friend Tasha was my maid of honor. Bennett's college roommate Jerome was his best man. We couldn't afford anything fancy because every spare penny was going into the business. "Are you sure about this?" Tasha asked me while we waited for the ceremony to start. "You've known him less than a year." "I'm sure," I said, adjusting the simple blue dress I'd bought for the occasion. "He's different, Tash. He sees me. Really sees me." She hugged me but I felt her hesitation. "I just want you to be happy. You work so hard. You deserve someone who appreciates everything you do." "He does appreciate it. He tells me every day." What I didn't tell her was that I'd just taken out a second mortgage on my condo to invest in Bennett's company. That I'd emptied my savings account to cover payroll when the angel investment ran out. That I'd started working weekends at a retail job to bring in extra cash while Bennett focused on the business. I told myself it was temporary. That we were building something together. That when the company succeeded, it would all be worth it. Our honeymoon was a weekend at a bed and breakfast 2 hours away because that's all we could afford. Bennett spent most of it on his laptop, dealing with a client crisis. I didn't mind. I sat beside him, helping him draft emails, solving problems, being his partner in every sense of the word. "You're amazing," he said on our last night there, finally closing his laptop. "Most women would be angry that I spent our honeymoon working." "We're building a future," I said. "I understand." He kissed me. "I'm going to make you so proud. One day we're going to have everything. The house, the cars, the trips to Europe. I promise." I held on to that promise for 3 years. The first year of marriage was hard but hopeful. The business grew slowly. We lived in my condo because his apartment was too small. I paid most of the bills because company profits were being reinvested. Bennett worked long hours and I worked longer ones, juggling my consulting job, my retail job, and helping manage his company's finances. "Just a little longer," he'd say when I was exhausted. "We're almost there." By year 2 things were looking up. The company landed a major client. Revenue increased. Bennett hired more staff. He started getting invitations to speak at industry events. But somehow we still didn't have money. The bills were still mine to pay. The mortgage was still my responsibility. When I asked about it, Bennett had explanations. "We need to reinvest in growth. This is how startups work, babe. You have to spend money to make money." But we agreed that once revenue hit a certain point, you'd start taking a salary. We're past that point. And I am taking a salary. It's just modest. The real money comes later when we sell or go public. "Bennett, I'm working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I need you to contribute to the household expenses." "I will. So, I promise. Just trust me." So I did. Because the alternative was admitting I'd made a mistake. That I'd invested everything in a man who was using me. That the love I thought we had was just a transaction he'd disguised with pretty words. Year 3 was when everything started cracking. Bennett was always gone. Always at the office. Always in meetings. He stopped asking about my day. Stopped noticing when I was tired. Stopped pretending to care about anything except his company. Our anniversary came and went with a text. "Sorry babe, stuck in meetings." Rain check. My birthday was forgotten entirely until I reminded him the next day. He ordered flowers to the office with a card that read, "From Bennett," like it was a business obligation. We stopped having sex. We stopped talking. We stopped being partners. But I told myself it was temporary. That he was stressed. That once the business stabilized, we'd get back to who we used to be. I didn't know then that there was no who we used to be, because that version of us was fiction. I was a resource to Bennett, nothing more. A bank account with emotions. A financial consultant who worked for free and came with benefits. The woman he actually wanted was Sienna, the venture capitalist's daughter, the woman who could give him connections and credibility and access to money without making him feel small. I found an email once, buried in a folder on our shared computer. It was from Bennett to his business partner, written about 6 months into our marriage. "Amara's investment really saved us. She's good for at least another year of funding if we're careful. After that, we'll need to secure real investors. Maybe I can leverage her consulting contacts. She knows everyone in the financial district. Real investors. Like I wasn't real. Like my money and my work and my sacrifice were just placeholders until he found something better." I closed the email without saying anything. I told myself I was overreacting. That he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But I knew. Deep down, in the place where we know things we don't want to admit, I knew. He was using me. And I was letting him. The night I saw him at table 7, proposing to another woman, wasn't the moment he betrayed me. That betrayal had been happening slowly, invisibly for 3 years. Every time he chose work over me. Every time he took my money without gratitude. Every time he made me feel small for asking to be treated like a wife instead of an employee. Table 7 was just the moment I stopped lying to myself about it. The morning after I saw him propose to Sienna, I woke up before him and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful. Innocent. Like someone who hadn't just destroyed his marriage in the most spectacular way possible. I thought about waking him up. About screaming at him. About demanding explanations. But what would be the point? He'd lie. He'd gaslight me. He'd find a way to make this my fault, to make me question what I saw with my own eyes. Instead, I got up quietly and made coffee. I got dressed for work in my favorite red blouse, the one that made me feel powerful. I put on makeup carefully, covering the circles under my eyes from not sleeping. When Bennett finally woke up, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, reviewing files like it was any other morning. "Morning," he said, kissing the top of my head absently. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said truthfully. "Everything okay?" I looked up at him. At the man I'd married. The man I'd sacrificed everything for. "Everything's fine," I lied. Just thinking about work stuff. He nodded, already distracted by his phone. Probably texting Sienna good morning. Probably planning their future while standing in the kitchen I paid for. I might be late again tonight, he said, pouring coffee. Big meeting with potential investors. No problem. I'll probably work late too. It was so easy, the lying. We'd both been doing it for so long that it felt natural. He left for the office an hour later. I watched him drive away from the window and something in my chest finally hardened completely. I picked up my phone and called my best friend. Tasha, I said when she answered. I need your help. And I need you not to ask questions until I'm ready to explain. Amara? What's wrong? Everything. But I'm going to fix it. I just need you to trust me. There was a pause. Then, always. What do you need? A lawyer. The best divorce lawyer you know. And maybe a forensic accountant. Can you get me names? Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? No. But I will be. I promise. And for the first time in 3 years I meant it. The law office was on the 40th floor of a building downtown with views that stretched across the city. I sat in the waiting room wearing my green suit, my evidence flash drive in my purse, and a calmness I didn't know I possessed. Miss Patterson? The receptionist smiled at me. I kept my maiden name when we married, thank God. Attorney Wilson will see you now. Grace Wilson was a woman in her 50s with silver hair cut sharp and eyes that missed nothing. Her office was lined with legal books and framed photos of her with various politicians and judges. She'd been recommended by Tasha's cousin who'd gone through a difficult divorce 5 years ago. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, I said, shaking her hand. Tasha's family is good people. She said you needed help urgently. Grace gestured to the chair across from her desk. Tell me what's going on. I spent the next hour telling her everything. About Bennett. About the business. About my investments. About Table 7 and the engagement ring and the woman named Sienna who thought she was marrying a single man. Grace took notes, her expression neutral but focused. Do you have documentation? She asked. I pulled out the flash drive. Everything. Bank statements showing my investments in his company. Emails where he discusses using my money. Text messages. Business records showing I'm listed as a founding investor. I even have messages where he admits to his business partner that my financial consulting turned the company around. Grace plugged the flash drive into her computer and started reviewing files. The silence stretched while she read. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Finally she looked up at me. Miss Patterson, do you understand what you have here? Evidence that he's a lying cheater? More than that. You have evidence that you're entitled to a significant portion of his business. You invested your own money as a founding partner. You provided consulting services that he never paid you for. You have emails where he explicitly acknowledges your contribution to the company's success. My heart started beating faster. What does that mean exactly? It means you're not just entitled to alimony or a settlement. You're entitled to equity, to ongoing profits, to royalties on any patents or intellectual property you helped develop. She leaned back in her chair. Your husband has been building a business with your money and your expertise. That business belongs to both of you whether he acknowledges it or not. Can we prove that? With this documentation? Absolutely. I'll need to bring in a forensic accountant to establish exactly how much you've invested and what your share should be. But yes, we can prove it. I felt something like hope for the first time in days. How long will this take? That depends on how cooperative he is. If he fights, it could take a year or more. If he's smart and settles, we could have this done in 6 months. He'll fight, I said with certainty. He won't want to give up any of the business. Then we'll make it expensive for him to fight. Discovery alone will cost him tens of thousands in legal fees. And when we're done, everyone in his business community will know exactly how he built his company. On his wife's money and expertise while cheating on her. Grace's smile was sharp. Men like your husband hate public humiliation more than they hate losing money. We spent another hour going over strategy. Grace explained that we'd file for divorce and business dissolution simultaneously. We'd request a temporary restraining order preventing him from moving assets or taking on new debt. We'd freeze joint accounts and secure my rights to the house and any other shared property. What about the other woman? I asked. Sienna. She doesn't know about me. Should I tell her? That's up to you. Legally it doesn't matter. But it might affect their relationship, which could affect his business prospects if her family is his potential investor. I thought about it. The woman in the red dress, crying happy tears while Bennett slipped a ring on her finger. She was a victim too in a way. But she was also about to become his next source of funding, his next stepping stone to success. "I'll think about it," I said. "Fair enough. For now, don't let him know anything is wrong. Act normal. Keep documenting everything. If he's still seeing this other woman, try to get proof. Photos, receipts, anything that establishes the timeline." I nodded, taking notes. "One more thing," Grace said seriously. "This is going to get ugly. Men like Bennett don't let go easily. He's going to try to manipulate you, to convince you you're overreacting, to make you feel guilty. He might even threaten you. Are you prepared for that?" "Yes," I said. And I meant it. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I was normal Amara. I went to work. I smiled at colleagues. I texted Bennett about dinner plans and grocery lists like everything was fine. At night, I was someone else. I was a detective, a spy, building a case against my own husband. I found more emails. Messages to Sienna about their future, about the house they'd buy, about the wedding they'd plan. Messages where he called her, the woman I'm meant to be with, while I was sleeping in the next room. I found receipts for expensive dinners at Giovanni's, charges to our credit card that I'd paid off without questioning because I trusted him. I found plane tickets to a weekend trip to wine country with her, charged to the business account, listed as a client meeting. I found photos on his cloud account that he'd forgotten I had access to. Photos of them together, happy and carefree, dating back 8 months. Before he proposed at the restaurant. Before I thought anything was wrong. One photo hit especially hard. It was from our anniversary, the one he'd missed with a text about being stuck in meetings. In the photo, he was at a beach with Sienna, both of them in swimsuits, her arms around his neck, both smiling at the camera. He'd spent our anniversary with her. I saved everything. Screenshot every message, every photo, every receipt. I organized it all into folders with dates and descriptions. I was methodical about it, professional, treating it like the consulting project from hell. Tasha called me every night to check in. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm okay. Angry but okay." "You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be devastated. He doesn't deserve your composure. If I fall apart now, I'll give him the advantage. I need to stay focused. Just promise me you're processing this. That you're not just bottling it up." I promised, but I wasn't sure if I was lying. The truth was, I didn't have time to process. I didn't have time to cry or scream or curl up in bed. I had work to do. The forensic accountant Grace hired was a woman named Patricia who looked like someone's sweet grandmother but had the mind of a detective. She spent 3 days reviewing my files. "Your husband is quite skilled at hiding money," she said during our meeting. "He's created several LLC accounts that funnel profits from the main business. He's paying himself consulting fees through these shadow companies. He's even claiming losses on the main business that don't actually exist. Can we trace it all?" "Already done. He owes you approximately $400,000 in unpaid equity and consulting fees. That's not counting the value of your ongoing intellectual property contributions." I stared at her. 400,000? At minimum. Depending on the business valuation, it could be significantly more. His company is worth about $2 million based on current assets and projected revenue. You're entitled to at least 40% of that based on your investment and contribution. The math made my head spin. $800,000. That's what I was owed. Will we get it? I asked. If Attorney Wilson has anything to say about it, yes. 2 weeks after my first meeting with Grace, I was ready. We had documentation. We had strategy. We had accounts frozen and restraining orders prepared. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Grace asked me the day before we planned to serve papers. "Once we start, there's no going back. Your husband will know you're leaving and he'll react. Probably badly." I looked at her across her desk, this woman who was about to help me reclaim my life. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. That night, I went home and cooked dinner like normal. Bennett came home late like always, distracted by his phone like always. "Something smells good," he said, barely looking at me. "Your favorite. Chicken parmesan." He kissed my cheek absently and sat down at the table, still scrolling through messages. Probably from Sienna. Probably planning their future while I served him dinner in the house I paid for. "How was your day?" I asked, serving him a generous portion. "Busy. We're close to closing the deal with Sterling Ventures. Sienna's dad is really interested." He said her name. Just casually dropped it into conversation like it meant nothing. Like I didn't know who she was. "That's great," I said calmly. "When do you think it'll close?" "Maybe a month? Her dad wants to meet me first. Do some due diligence." "Smart. You do the same." He finally looked up from his phone, surprised. You're in a good mood. Why wouldn't I be? You're about to get your big funding. Everything we've worked for is paying off. Everything I worked for, I met. While you worked on building a life with someone else. He smiled, relaxed for the first time in weeks. You're right. And once this closes, things will get easier. We can finally start living the life I promised you. No, we can't, I thought. Because by the time your deal closes, you'll know exactly how much you owe me. We finished dinner making small talk about nothing. He went to bed early, exhausted from keeping up his double life. I stayed up late, reviewing my documentation one final time. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would serve him divorce papers and watch his world crumble the way mine had at table 7. Tomorrow, I would stop being his victim and start being his biggest problem. I went to bed around midnight, sleeping on the far edge of our mattress as far from him as possible without leaving the bed. He snored softly, peaceful in his ignorance. Let him sleep, I thought. Let him have one more night thinking he's getting away with it. Because tomorrow, Bennett Crawford was going to learn that using people has consequences. And I was going to make sure he paid every single one. The next morning started like every other morning for the past 3 years. My alarm went off at 6. I made coffee. I got dressed for work in a blue dress that made me feel confident. I acted like everything was perfectly normal. Bennett was still asleep when I left the house. I drove to my office, parked in my usual spot, and walked into the building like this was just another Wednesday. But it wasn't. At 9 o'clock, I met with Grace and Patricia in a conference room 3 blocks from my office. Spread across the table were stacks of documents, all organized, all labeled, all ready. These are the divorce papers, Grace said, sliding one stack toward me. Standard no-fault divorce citing irreconcilable differences. But we're also including your claim for business equity and unpaid consulting fees. And these, Patricia added, are the forensic accounting reports showing exactly how much he owes you. Every investment documented. Every contribution calculated. I looked at the numbers. $400,000 in direct investment. Another $300,000 in unpaid consulting services. Plus 40% equity in a business worth $2 million. I was looking at more than $1 million in claims. He's going to lose his mind, I said quietly. Probably, Grace agreed. Which is why we're also filing restraining orders preventing him from moving assets or taking on new debt without court approval. By the time these papers are served at noon today, his accounts will be frozen. What about the house? Your house, Grace corrected. It's in your name, purchased before the marriage. He has no claim to it. But we're still securing it legally to prevent any attempts at claiming community property. The meeting lasted 2 hours. I signed documents, reviewed strategy, asked questions about what would happen next. He'll be served at his office at noon, Grace explained. We've hired a process server who specializes in high-conflict cases. He'll deliver the papers in front of Bennett's business partner and staff. Public service in these cases is intentional. It prevents him from hiding the truth. Won't that embarrass him? That's the point. Men like your husband rely on reputation. Once his colleagues know he built his business on his wife's money while cheating on her, his credibility takes a hit. It also prevents him from creating a false narrative before you can tell the truth. I nodded, my stomach tight with nerves. This was really happening. After weeks of planning, of documenting, of staying silent, I was finally making my move. What should I do when he comes home? I asked. Nothing. Don't engage. If he wants to talk, tell him to contact your lawyer. If he gets aggressive or threatening, call the police. Do not let him manipulate you into discussing this directly. At 11:45, I was back in my office pretending to work while my heart hammered against my ribs. My phone sat on my desk, silent, waiting. At 12:15 it rang. Bennett's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. Voicemail. Then a text. What the hell is happening? Call me now. Another text. I just got served with divorce papers at work. In front of everyone. What are you doing? Another. Amara, this isn't funny. Call me right now. I put my phone on silent and turned it face down. Grace called 5 minutes later from her office line. Papers are served. He called me screaming. I told him all communication goes through me now. He's threatening to contest everything. Let him. That's the right attitude. Now comes the hard part. He'll try to contact you directly. He'll show up at your work or your house. He'll try to convince you to drop this. Stay strong. I will. But staying strong was harder than I expected. Bennett called 17 times that afternoon. He sent 43 texts, each one more desperate and angry than the last. How could you do this to me? After everything I've done for you? You're destroying my reputation. The investors saw the papers. They're asking questions. You're ruining my life. I read each message with cold detachment. Notice I thought how none of them say, I'm sorry. How none of them acknowledge what he did. It's all about him. His reputation. His investors. His life. Like I wasn't even real to him. At 5 o'clock I left work and drove to Tasha's house instead of going home. I packed a bag that morning with enough clothes and toiletries for a few days. Grace had warned me not to go home yet, not until Bennett had time to process and calm down. Smart thinking, Tasha said, pulling me into a hug at her door. How are you feeling? Numb. Angry. Relieved. All of it at once. Come in. I made dinner. And wine. Lots of wine. We sat in her kitchen while she reheated pasta and poured expensive red wine into generous glasses. Her husband Jeff was traveling for work, so it was just us, which I appreciated. I needed my friend, not polite conversation with someone else's spouse. Tell me everything, Tasha said. So I did. I told her about Table 7, about the months of investigation, about the forensic accounting and the divorce papers and the frozen accounts. I told her about the money I was owed, about the business I'd helped build, about the lies that had constructed our entire marriage. Tasha listened without interrupting, her anger building visibly with every detail. I knew something was wrong, she said when I finished. At your wedding I felt it. The way he looked at you was wrong. Like you were useful instead of loved. I wish I'd listened to you. No, I wish I'd said something stronger. I should have told you to run. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But you're doing it now. That's what matters. You're getting out and taking what's yours. My phone buzzed constantly throughout dinner. Bennett calling. Bennett texting. His business partner calling. Numbers I didn't recognize. You should block him, Tasha suggested. Grace says to keep a record of everything. The harassment helps our case. Then let me see your phone. I'll monitor it and alert you if anything actually needs your attention. I handed it over gratefully. The constant buzzing was making my skin crawl. Around 8 o'clock, Tasha suddenly looked up from the phone, her face serious. Amara. He's at your house. He just sent a text saying he's waiting for you. My chest tightened. What should I do? Nothing. You're staying here. Let him wait. She typed something quickly. I'm texting Grace to let her know. Grace called back immediately. Do not go home. He's escalating. I'll have someone drive by and document that he's there. If he damages property or tries to break in, we call the police. He wouldn't do that, I said, then stopped. Would he? I didn't actually know what Bennett was capable of when cornered. Better safe than sorry, Grace said firmly. I stayed at Tasha's that night, sleeping in her guest room, jumping at every sound. My phone continued buzzing until after midnight when the messages finally stopped. The next morning I woke up to a voicemail from Bennett. His voice sounded different. Broken. Desperate. Amara, please. We need to talk about this. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't throw away 3 years over one moment of weakness. I love you. You're my wife. Please call me back. One moment of weakness. That's how he described 8 months of dating another woman, proposing to her, building a life with her while lying to me every single day. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. Grace called at 9. Bennett's lawyer contacted me. He wants to negotiate. Already? He can't afford a long legal battle and he knows it. The frozen accounts mean he can't access company funds for legal fees. His business partner is asking questions. Sienna's father heard about the divorce and is reconsidering the investment. Good. Bennett is offering a settlement. He'll buy out your equity stake for $200,000 and agree to the divorce without contest. I laughed. Actually laughed. He owes me over $1 million and he's offering $200,000? I told him it was insulting. He said it's all he can afford without destroying the business. Tell him I'll see him in court. You're sure? We could negotiate up from his offer. I'm sure. He used me for 3 years. He built that business on my money and my work. I'm not settling for a fraction of what I'm owed. Understood. I'll let his lawyer know. Over the next week, I stayed at Tasha's while lawyers argued. Bennett's offer increased to $300,000. Then $400,000. Then $500,000 plus a small percentage of future profits. It's not a terrible offer, Grace admitted during one of our calls. If we go to court, you might get more, but it could take a year and cost you $50,000 in legal fees. What's his business worth if he loses the Sterling Ventures investment? I asked. Probably half what it's worth now. And if Sienna's father finds out Bennett was married the whole time he was dating his daughter? Grace was quiet for a moment. He'll pull out completely. The reputational hit alone would be devastating. Then we wait, I said. Eventually the truth about Sienna will come out. And when it does, Bennett will have no choice but to give me what I'm owed. You're playing a dangerous game. He played it first. I'm just better at it. That Sunday I finally went home to get more of my things. Tasha came with me for safety. We pulled up to find Bennett's car gone, which was a relief. The house looked the same from outside, but inside, everything felt different. Photos were missing from walls. Drawers had been gone through. He'd been here, probably looking for something he could use against me. I packed quickly. Clothes, documents, personal items I couldn't replace. Tasha helped me carry boxes to her car. You could stay with me as long as you need, she offered. I appreciate that. But this is my house. He's the one who should leave. Talk to Grace about that. Maybe you can get an order kicking him out. When I got back to Tasha's, there was an email waiting from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "We need to talk." I opened it cautiously. Miss Patterson, my name is Sienna Chin. I'm the woman your husband proposed to at Giovanni's restaurant. I found out yesterday that he's married. To you. I'm devastated and humiliated, and I want you to know I had no idea. If you're willing, I'd like to meet and talk. I think we both deserve to know the truth about who Bennett really is. My number is below if you're interested. I understand if you're not. I'm so sorry for the pain this must have caused you. I stared at the email for a long time. Tasha read over my shoulder. Are you going to meet her? I don't know. Should I? That depends. Do you want closure? Or revenge? What's the difference? She smiled grimly. Closure is for you. Revenge is for him. If you meet her and she tells her father what Bennett did, his funding disappears. His business collapses. You get everything you're owed because he'll have no choice. That sounds like revenge disguised as closure. Sometimes they're the same thing. I thought about the woman in the red dress, crying happy tears while Bennett lied to her face. She was a victim too. But she was also my leverage. I'll think about it, I said. But I already knew what I was going to do. 2 days later, I emailed Sienna back with a single line, coffee tomorrow at 2, Corner Cafe on 5th. Come alone. Her response came immediately, I'll be there. Thank you. The next afternoon, I sat in Corner Cafe wearing my green blazer and calm I didn't feel. My hands were steady. My face was composed. But inside my heart was racing. This was it. The moment that would determine how Bennett's story ended. When Sienna Chin walked in, I recognized her instantly. The red dress was gone, replaced with jeans and a plain white shirt. Her face was makeup-free, her eyes red from crying. She looked younger than I'd thought. Maybe 28. Vulnerable in a way that made me feel sorry for her despite everything. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking around her coffee cup. Thank you for meeting me, she said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice breaking. I feel like such an idiot. 8 months. I dated him for 8 months and never once suspected he was married. He took me to nice restaurants, introduced me to his friends, met my parents. He proposed. And the whole time he had a wife at home. How did you find out? I asked. The divorce papers. Someone at his office told my dad's assistant about them. My dad called me and asked if I knew Bennett was married. I said no, obviously not, what are you talking about? So he sent me photos of your wedding. Of Bennett in a tuxedo standing next to you wearing a ring. She pulled out her phone and showed me the photos. Our wedding day. Bennett and me at City Hall, happy and hopeful and so completely naive. I confronted him, she continued. He tried to deny it at first. Said you were his ex-wife, that the marriage was already over, that the divorce was just a formality. I knew he was lying. So I found you. I looked you up online, found your social media, your work profile. You're still listed as his wife on his emergency contact forms at work. You live in the same house. You're not his ex. You're his present. What did he say when you told him you knew the truth? He cried. Begged me to understand. Said he only married you for business reasons, that he never loved you, that I was the one he actually wanted. She looked at me with something like guilt. I told him to go to hell. I gave him back the ring. And I told my father to pull the funding offer. My chest felt tight. You told your father? Of course I did. My dad isn't going to invest in a company run by a man who lies to everyone he's supposed to care about. Bennett called me 50 times yesterday begging me to reconsider. I blocked his number. I sat back in my chair processing. Bennett's funding was gone. His reputation was destroyed. His business was imploding. What happens now? Sienna asked. With your divorce? He owes me a significant amount of money. He's been fighting the settlement, but without your father's investment, he won't have any choice but to pay me what I'm owed. Good. You deserve it. She hesitated. I know this is weird, but I want you to know I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for believing him when he said he was single. I should have asked more questions. He's good at lying, I said. That's not your fault. We talked for another hour. About Bennett, about his lies, about the different versions of himself he'd presented to each of us. She thought he was ambitious and romantic. I thought he was dedicated and grateful. Neither of us got the real person because the real Bennett Crawford was whatever he needed to be to get what he wanted. When we finally said goodbye, Sienna hugged me quickly. I hope you get everything you deserve, she said. I will, I promised. And I meant it. 3 days after my meeting with Sienna, Bennett's lawyer called Grace with a new offer. He'll agree to a 50-50 split of the business valuation and pay you the full amount of unpaid consulting fees. That's approximately $900,000 total. I sat in Grace's office trying to process what I was hearing. He's actually offering that? His funding fell through. His business partner found out about the marriage and the lies and is considering dissolving their partnership. Bennett's backed into a corner. Is this a good offer? Honestly? Yes. He's agreeing to almost everything we asked for. If we push for more, we risk him declaring bankruptcy, which would mean you might not see any money for years. I thought about it. $900,000. It wasn't quite the million I was owed, but it was close. And more importantly, it was real money available now, not tied up in years of legal battles. What's the catch? I asked. He wants the divorce finalized within 30 days. He wants you to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the circumstances of the divorce. And he wants to keep the business name and branding. Why does he want an NDA? Probably to prevent you from talking to other potential investors or clients. To limit the damage to his reputation. I smiled coldly. Tell him I'll agree to everything except the NDA. I won't actively disparage him, but I also won't lie if someone asks me direct questions about our marriage or the business. Grace raised an eyebrow. You're willing to lose $100,000 over an NDA? Principal is worth $100,000 to me. She called Bennett's lawyer back while I waited. I could hear her side of the conversation, firm and professional. My client agrees to the split and the timeline, but the NDA is off the table. She won't seek out opportunities to damage his reputation, but she also won't be silenced if asked direct questions. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. There was a long pause. Then Grace smiled. Excellent. We'll draw up the agreement. Thank you. She hung up and looked at me. He took it. We'll have the settlement agreement drafted by tomorrow. Sign it, and within 30 days you'll have your money and be legally divorced. I felt something like relief wash over me. It's really over? Almost. We still need to finalize the paperwork, close out joint accounts, transfer assets. But yes, the hard part is over. You won. I left Grace's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Bennett had finally acknowledged what he owed me. His lies had cost him everything. His business was damaged, his reputation was shot, and his engagement was over. And I was walking away with enough money to rebuild my entire life. That night, I finally went back to my own house. Bennett's car wasn't in the driveway. According to Grace, he'd moved in with his business partner temporarily while we finalized the divorce. Inside, the house felt empty in a good way. Quiet. Mine. I walked through each room reclaiming them. This was my space now. My sanctuary. No more lies. No more pretending. Just me and the life I was about to build. I spent the next week organizing everything. I met with Patricia to review the final settlement numbers. I met with my bank to set up new accounts. I updated my emergency contacts and beneficiary information, removing Bennett from everything. I also met with a career counselor at my firm to discuss next steps. I'd been thinking about starting my own consulting company for years but never had the capital or confidence. Now I had both. With $900,000, you could easily launch your own firm, the counselor said. You have the experience, the reputation, and the client base. Why keep making money for someone else when you could build something for yourself? That's what I'm thinking. I've been working on a business plan. Show me. I spent 2 hours presenting my vision. a financial consulting firm specializing in helping tech startups navigate early-stage growth. I'd use everything I'd learned from helping Bennett build his company, minus the lying and exploitation. The counselor was impressed. This is solid. With your track record, you'll have clients lined up. When are you planning to launch? As soon as the divorce is final. Clean slate, new beginning. Smart. Let me know if you need any connections. I know several founders who'd love to work with you. 2 weeks later, I signed the settlement agreement in Grace's office. Bennett signed in his lawyer's office across town. We didn't see each other. We didn't speak. Congratulations, Grace said, shaking my hand. The money will be transferred to your account within 72 hours. Thank you. For everything. You made it easy. You came prepared, stayed focused, and didn't let emotions derail your goals. That's rare in divorce cases. I walked out of that office building feeling like a different person than the one who'd walked in 6 weeks ago. I wasn't Bennett's wife anymore. I wasn't his victim or his resource or his safety net. I was just a Mara Patterson, successful financial consultant with enough money to build whatever life I wanted. 3 days later, the money hit my account. All $900,000 sitting there in black and white, undeniable proof that I'd won. I stared at the number on my phone screen and started laughing. Actually laughing, standing in my kitchen alone, laughing until tears ran down my face. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. I took myself out to dinner that night. Not to Giovanni's, never to Giovanni's again. But to a new place across town, a small restaurant with outdoor seating and string lights and the best pasta I'd ever tasted. I ordered wine. I ordered dessert. I sat there alone, perfectly content, watching the city move around me. My phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. Did it clear? It cleared. I'm rich and single. Living the dream. Celebrate tomorrow? I'm buying. Deal. I finished my dinner slowly, savoring every bite, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The lies. The betrayal. The investigation. The divorce. The victory. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't anything except grateful. Grateful that I'd seen him at table 7. Grateful that the waiter had told me the truth. Grateful that I'd had the strength to walk away instead of trying to save something that was never real to begin with. Bennett Crawford had used me, but in doing so, he'd underestimated me. He'd thought I was weak, dependent, someone who'd accept whatever he decided to give. He was wrong. And now he was living with the consequences while I was living my best life. I paid the bill and walked to my car, the night air cool and perfect. Tomorrow I'd start building my consulting firm. Tomorrow I'd start the next chapter. But tonight I was just going to go home, pour another glass of wine, and enjoy being free. The divorce was final 30 days later. I received the official decree in the mail along with updated business documents showing I was no longer associated with Bennett's company. I framed the divorce decree and hung it in my home office as a reminder. Not of failure, but of survival. Of standing up for myself. Of knowing my worth. That same week, I officially registered my consulting firm. Patterson Financial Solutions. The name felt powerful. I reached out to former clients and contacts, letting people know I was available for new projects. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 clients signed and proposals out for 5 more. Bennett's company, meanwhile, was struggling. I heard through business contacts that his partner had left, taking half their client base. That he was scrambling to find investors. That his reputation in the tech community was damaged beyond repair. I felt nothing when I heard these updates. No satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. He was no longer my problem. My life was full of new things now. New clients, new projects, new routines. I redecorated my house, getting rid of anything that reminded me of him. I bought new furniture, painted walls, created spaces that felt authentically mine. I traveled. I took a week in Mexico just because I could. I sat on beaches and read books and didn't check work email for 5 whole days. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I went to dinners and concerts and museums. I remembered what it felt like to have a life that wasn't centered around someone else's needs. And slowly, carefully, I started trusting myself again. Trusting my instincts. Trusting that I could build something worthwhile without needing anyone else's approval. 3 months after the divorce was final, I was having coffee with a potential client when I saw Bennett across the street. He was walking alone, head down, looking older and smaller than I remembered. He didn't see me. Or if he did, he didn't acknowledge it. I watched him disappear into the crowd and felt nothing. No anger. No pain. No regret. He was just a man I used to know. A chapter I'd closed. I turned back to my client and smiled. So, tell me more about your growth projections for next quarter. My life was full of better things now. Better people. Better opportunities. Better versions of myself. And Bennett Crawford, the man who thought he could use me and discard me, was just a footnote in my story. The real story was what came next. The confrontation I'd been avoiding happened 4 months after I'd served the divorce papers, 2 weeks before our court date to finalize everything. I should have known Bennett wouldn't go quietly, even after agreeing to the settlement. I was leaving my office around 7 in the evening, tired from a long day of meetings with new clients. My consulting firm was growing faster than I'd expected, and I'd just signed a contract with a startup that would secure my income for the next year. I was thinking about stopping for takeout on the way home when I saw him. Bennett was leaning against my car in the parking garage, arms crossed, looking like he'd been waiting for a while. My first instinct was to turn around and go back inside, call security, avoid this entirely. But I didn't. I was tired of avoiding him. Tired of letting him control even this small part of my life. I walked toward my car with my keys already in my hand, phone in my pocket with 911 ready to dial if needed. "What are you doing here?" I asked, stopping a safe distance away. "We need to talk," he said. His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't been sleeping. "You've been ignoring my calls. Because I have nothing to say to you. Everything goes through our lawyers. You know that. This is important. It's about the settlement." I waited. He looked different than I remembered. Thinner. His hair was messier. His shirt was wrinkled. The confident, polished man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked desperate. "I can't afford what you're asking for," he said. "The 900,000. It's going to destroy my business completely. That's not my problem. Amara, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But if you take this money, you're not just punishing me. You're destroying years of work. Work we did together. Work I funded while you lied to me every single day." My voice was calm, cold. "Work you built with my money while dating another woman. Work you were planning to profit from without me. I made mistakes. I know that. But we can still fix this. We can still be partners in the business if you want. You don't have to take the cash settlement. We could restructure, make you a legitimate partner with voting rights." I stared at him. "You're actually suggesting I stay in business with you? After everything you've done? Why not? You're brilliant at this. You helped build the company. Together we could make it successful again." "No. Amara, please. Just think about it. The settlement is going to bankrupt me. I'll lose everything. Is that really what you want? You lost everything when you decided to use me," I said. "The money, the business, the respect you had in this community. You lost it all yourself. I'm just making sure I get what's mine." His face hardened. "You're being vindictive." "I'm being fair. You owe me that money. You acknowledged it in writing. Now you want me to let you off the hook because paying your debts is inconvenient. It's not about inconvenience. It's about survival. If I pay you, I can't keep the business running. I'll have to shut down. Fire my employees. Destroy everything I've worked for. Again, not my problem. God, you've become so cold." He pushed off from my car, stepping closer. "This isn't you. The Amara I married wouldn't be this heartless. The Amara you married doesn't exist anymore. You killed her when you proposed to someone else while wearing the watch I bought you." He flinched. "I never meant for you to see that. Clearly. You meant to keep lying. Keep using me. Keep building your future with Sienna while I paid your bills. Sienna was a mistake. No, marrying me was the mistake. Sienna was your plan. I was just the bridge you were using to get there." He was quiet for a long moment. "Then, if you go through with this settlement, I'll have nothing left. No business, no money, no future. You'll have destroyed me completely." "You destroyed yourself," I said. "I'm just holding you accountable. Please, Amara. I'm begging you. Reduce the settlement. Give me a chance to rebuild. I'll pay you back over time, I promise. Just don't take everything at once." I looked at him, this man I'd once loved, this man I'd sacrificed everything for, and felt nothing except pity. "Your promises don't mean anything to me anymore," I said quietly. "Sign the settlement as agreed or I'll see you in court. Either way, you're paying what you owe. You'll regret this." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. You think you're winning right now, but all you're doing is making enemies. People in this industry will remember how you destroyed my business. They'll think twice before working with you." I smiled without warmth. "Let them think. The people who matter already know the truth. They know you built your company on your wife's money while cheating on her. They know you lied to investors, to partners, to everyone. Your reputation is already destroyed, Bennett. I didn't do that. You did. He stared at me, anger and desperation warring on his face. I loved you. I really did. Maybe not the way you wanted, but I did love you in my own way. No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference. You're wrong. I'm not. And somewhere deep down, you know it. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. His shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him visibly. I hope you're happy, he said finally. I hope destroying me makes you feel better about everything. I am happy, I said honestly. Not because I destroyed you, but because I'm finally free of you. My business is thriving. I have clients who respect me. I have money in the bank that I earned through my own work. I don't need you for anything anymore. That's what makes me happy. I walked past him to my car. He didn't try to stop me. I got in, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing alone in the parking garage, a small figure getting smaller. For a second, just a second, I felt bad for him. Then I remembered table 7. Remembered the ring. Remembered every lie, every manipulation, every moment he'd made me feel small and worthless and used. And the pity disappeared. I drove home with my windows down, singing along to the radio, feeling lighter than I had in years. Bennett called that night. Then again the next morning. Then 5 more times throughout the day. I didn't answer. I forwarded his messages to Grace and blocked his number. His lawyer called Grace the following afternoon. He wants to meet in person, Grace told me. All 4 of us. You, him, and both lawyers. He says he has something important to discuss about the settlement. Tell him no. Everything can be discussed through you. Are you sure? Sometimes these meetings help bring closure. I don't need closure from him. I just need my money. Understood. I'll let his lawyer know. The court date arrived 2 weeks later. I wore my green suit, the one that made me feel powerful. I walked into that courthouse with my head high and my evidence organized in a professional binder. Bennett was already there with his lawyer. He looked worse than he had in the parking garage. His suit was expensive but didn't fit right anymore, like he'd lost weight. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. Part of me wondered if he was doing this on purpose, trying to look sympathetic for the judge. Then I decided I didn't care either way. The judge reviewed our settlement agreement, asked a few questions, and confirmed we both understood the terms. It took less than 30 minutes. The settlement is approved, the judge said, signing the final documents. Assets will be transferred according to the agreed timeline. This marriage is officially dissolved. Just like that, it was over. 3 years of marriage ended with a signature and a gavel. Outside the courthouse, Grace shook my hand. Congratulations. The money should be in your account within 3 days. Thank you for everything. You made it easy. You were prepared, focused, and didn't let emotions derail you. That's rare. Bennett and his lawyer left through a different exit. I didn't see him go. I didn't care to. I drove back to my office and immediately got to work. I had clients waiting, projects demanding attention, a business to build. 3 days later, the settlement money appeared in my account. $900,000. Proof that standing up for yourself has value. Proof that walking away from people who use you is worth it. I transferred a chunk of it into business accounts for my firm. Set aside money for taxes. Invested a portion for retirement. And kept enough liquid to live comfortably while I grew my company. That night, Tasha took me out to celebrate. How does it feel? She asked over expensive champagne. Honestly, it feels like justice. Not revenge, just justice. There's a difference? Revenge would be trying to destroy him out of spite. Justice is just making sure he pays what he owes. I'm not going out of my way to ruin him. I'm just not protecting him from the consequences of his own actions anymore. I'm proud of you. A lot of people would have caved when he begged you to reduce the settlement. A few months ago I might have. But I'm not that person anymore. We toasted to new beginnings, to freedom, to knowing your worth. And I realized that Bennett had actually done me a favor by betraying me. He'd forced me to wake up. To see myself clearly. To understand that I was capable of building something on my own, without relying on someone else's approval or support. I was stronger now than I'd ever been when we were together. More confident. More successful. More myself. And he was just a man I used to know, learning the hard way that using people catches up with you eventually. The fallout from Bennett's divorce spread through the tech community faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks of our courthouse appearance, articles started appearing in local business publications about the settlement. Tech entrepreneur faces major setback after divorce, settlement forces business restructuring. I didn't feed any information to these publications. I didn't have to. Bennett's business partner, the one who'd left after discovering the lies, had apparently been less discreet than Bennett hoped. But the real unraveling started when Sienna's story came out. I was having coffee with a client when Tasha forwarded me a link to an article in a business magazine. Venture capital family pulls funding after discovering deception. The article didn't name Bennett specifically, but anyone in the tech community would recognize the details. It talked about a founder who'd pursued investment through a romantic relationship with an investor's daughter while concealing his married status. It discussed how the deception had destroyed both the relationship and the business opportunity. People are talking about integrity in business relationships, the article concluded. In an industry built on trust, personal deception raises questions about professional honesty. My phone started buzzing with messages from colleagues and contacts. Did you see the article? That's about Bennett, right? So sorry for what you went through. Had no idea. If you need any references or support, let me know. I responded politely to everyone, keeping my messages professional and brief. I wasn't interested in discussing the details publicly, but I also wasn't going to hide or pretend everything was fine. 3 days after the article published, Sienna showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me. There's a Sienna Chen here to see you? She doesn't have an appointment but says it's important. I hesitated, then said, send her in. Sienna walked into my office looking more put together than at our last meeting. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a professional blue dress and carried herself with more confidence. I'm sorry for showing up without calling, she said. I wanted to talk to you about the article. Have a seat. Can I get you coffee? I'm fine, thank you. She sat down across from my desk. I'm the one who talked to that reporter. Not about you specifically, but about what happened. About Bennett lying to both of us. I wanted you to know it was me before you heard it from someone else. Why did you do it? Because other women should know. If Bennett's going to keep running a business, keep networking, keep dating, people deserve to know what kind of person he is. She met my eyes. I know you're moving on with your life. I know you probably want this whole thing to fade away. But I couldn't stay quiet. It felt wrong. I considered her words carefully. Part of me wished she hadn't talked to the press. It meant more attention, more questions, more reminders of a chapter one wanted to close. But another part of me respected what she'd done. She'd chosen honesty over comfort. Chosen to warn others instead of hiding what happened. I understand why you did it, I said finally. I'm not angry. But I won't be making any public statements myself. My lawyers have advised against it, and honestly, I'm ready to move forward. I respect that. I just wanted you to know it was me. And I wanted to say thank you. For what? For meeting with me. For treating me like a person instead of an enemy. You could have blamed me for what happened, but you didn't. That meant a lot. You were a victim too. Just a different kind. She nodded, looking relieved. How's your business going? I saw you started your own consulting firm. It's going well. Better than I expected, actually. Turns out a lot of people value honesty and expertise. I'm glad. You deserve success after what he put you through. She stood up. I should go. I just wanted to clear the air. Sienna? I said as she reached the door. For what it's worth, you did the right thing talking to that reporter. Even if it's uncomfortable, the truth matters. She smiled slightly. Thanks. Take care of yourself, Amara. After she left, I sat at my desk thinking about everything that had happened. The lies, the betrayal, the divorce, the settlement. And now this public exposure of who Bennett really was. I didn't take joy in his reputation being damaged. But I didn't feel guilty about it either. This was just the natural consequence of his choices. Of lying to everyone. Of using people for personal gain. Over the next month, I watched from a distance as Bennett's business continued to crumble. Clients left. His remaining partner quit. Former employees started sharing their own stories about his management style, his dishonesty about company finances, his habit of taking credit for other people's work. I heard through mutual contacts that he tried to start over with a new venture but couldn't find investors. That his name had become toxic in the tech community. That he'd moved to a different city, trying to rebuild somewhere people didn't know his history. I felt nothing when I heard these updates. No satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. He was no longer my concern. My own life was full of better things. My consulting firm had 10 clients now, all of them respectful, professional, and genuinely interested in my expertise. I'd hired an assistant to help manage my growing schedule. I'd been invited to speak at 2 industry conferences about financial strategy for startups. I was building something real. Something mine. Something that had nothing to do with Bennett Crawford or the life we pretended to have together. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into one of Bennett's former colleagues at a networking event. He approached me cautiously, like he wasn't sure if I'd want to talk. Amara, hi. How are you doing? I'm well, thanks. How are things with you? Good. Listen, I wanted to apologize. A lot of us who worked with Bennett had no idea what was happening with your marriage. If we'd known he was using you the way he was, we would have said something. I appreciate that. But it's not your responsibility. Bennett made his own choices. Still, we all benefited from your work, your investment, your expertise. And he took credit for all of it. That wasn't right. I smiled. Well, I'm doing fine now. Better than fine, actually. My firm is growing, I'm working with great clients, and I'm finally building something that's entirely mine. I'm glad to hear it. And if you ever need references or introductions, please don't hesitate to reach out. A lot of us respect what you've accomplished. These conversations happen more than I expected. People reaching out to apologize, to offer support, to make it clear they knew the truth about what had happened. It was validating in a way I didn't know I needed. Knowing that people saw through Bennett's lies. Knowing that my reputation was intact despite his attempts to paint himself as the victim. But the most satisfying moment came 8 months after the divorce, when I received an email from a major tech magazine. Dear Miss Patterson, we're writing a feature article about successful financial consultants in the tech industry. Your name came up repeatedly in our research. Would you be willing to be interviewed about your approach to helping startups navigate early-stage growth? I agreed to the interview. We spent 2 hours discussing my consulting philosophy, my strategies for helping founders avoid common financial pitfalls, my vision for building sustainable businesses. The interviewer never asked about Bennett. Never brought up my divorce. The focus was entirely on my work, my expertise, my success. When the article published 2 months later, it featured a full-page photo of me in my office, surrounded by financial charts and strategy documents. The headline read, Amara Patterson, Building Success Through Honest Financial Strategy. I framed that article and hung it next to my divorce decree. 2 pieces of paper that told the story of who I'd become. Someone who'd survived betrayal and built something beautiful from the wreckage. Tasha threw me a party to celebrate the article. My office was packed with friends, colleagues, and clients, all of them congratulating me on the feature and on how far I'd come. You should be so proud, Tasha said, hugging me. Look at everything you've built. I looked around the room at all these people who respected me for my work, not for who I was connected to or what I could provide them. People who valued honesty and integrity and competence. I am proud, I said. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely proud of my life. As you should be. You earned all of this. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my office alone looking at that magazine article. Reading quotes from clients about my expertise. Seeing my photo next to descriptions of successful projects I'd led. This was what success looked like. Not being married to someone successful. Not funding someone else's dreams. Not sacrificing yourself for someone who didn't appreciate it. Real success was building something yourself. Being recognized for your own work. Standing on your own accomplishments. And I'd finally achieved it. Not despite Bennett's betrayal, but because of it. Because he'd forced me to wake up and realize I didn't need him. That I was capable of more than I'd given myself credit for. So in a strange way, I owed him thanks. Not for what he'd meant to do, but for what he'd accidentally accomplished. He'd set me free. And I'd used that freedom to build a life that was entirely, completely, authentically mine. The real legal victory came 3 months after our divorce was final, in a way I never expected. I was meeting with Patricia, my forensic accountant, to review quarterly taxes for my consulting firm when she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. By the way, I've been tracking Bennett's business filings as part of our ongoing documentation. He submitted paperwork claiming business losses that should have offset his settlement payment to you. But the numbers don't add up. What do you mean? He claimed the business lost $400,000 last quarter. But based on client contracts I can see publicly, and based on his staff size, there's no way the losses were that high. I think he might be hiding assets. I stared at her. He wouldn't. We have a settlement. He paid me. Why would he risk that? Because if he can claim business losses, he might be able to get tax benefits that offset what he paid you. Essentially getting a refund for your settlement through fraudulent deductions. That's illegal. Very. Which is why I'm mentioning it. If he's committing tax fraud, you need to protect yourself. You don't want any association with his business decisions coming back on you. I called Grace immediately. Can he do that? Can he claim fake losses to offset the settlement? He can try, Grace said grimly. But if we can prove the losses are fabricated, he's looking at serious legal consequences. Tax fraud is a federal crime. What should I do? First, make sure all your documentation shows the settlement was a legitimate business debt, not something you benefited from fraudulently. Then, if you want to pursue this, we can report his suspicious filings to the IRS. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Report him. If he's committing fraud, that's his choice. But I'm not going to sit back and let him drag me into his mess. Grace filed the report. The IRS investigation started quietly, without public announcement. But I knew it was happening because Bennett's lawyer contacted Grace 2 weeks later, furious. Your client reported my client to the IRS. This is harassment. We'll be filing a motion. My client reported suspicious activity that could affect her liability, Grace responded calmly. That's her legal right and responsibility. If your client has nothing to hide, the investigation will find nothing. This is vindictive. She's trying to destroy him. She's protecting herself from potential criminal liability. There's a difference. The investigation took 4 months. During that time I heard nothing official. But through business contacts, I heard that IRS agents had shown up at Bennett's office. That they'd seized his financial records. That they were interviewing his former employees and business partners. I continued running my firm, signing new clients, building my reputation. I didn't think about Bennett except when Grace called with updates. Then, 5 months after Patricia first noticed the discrepancies, I got a call from Grace. The IRS completed their investigation. Bennett was charged with filing false business expenses. He's facing significant fines and potential jail time. I sat down feeling shaky. Jail time? He falsified business documents to claim nearly $500,000 in fraudulent deductions. That's serious tax fraud. He's also being audited for the past 3 years, which means any other questionable deductions will be examined. What does this mean for me? Nothing bad. You were cleared completely. Your settlement was legitimate. Your taxes were filed correctly. You're not implicated in any way. In fact, the investigation confirmed that everything you claimed about his business practices was accurate. So I was right. About all of it. About all of it, Grace confirmed. He was hiding money, manipulating records, and lying to everyone. The IRS is now going back through his business from the day it was founded. Every expense, every deduction, every claim. He's going to be financially destroyed. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. Keep me updated, I said. But otherwise I'm done. I don't want to follow this story anymore. Understood. You're officially clear of all this. Go live your life. I did exactly that. While Bennett dealt with federal charges and mounting legal bills, I focused on my business. Within 6 months, I doubled my client base. Within a year, I'd hired 2 junior consultants to help handle the workload. My firm was profiled in another magazine article, this time focusing on successful women entrepreneurs in tech. The article mentioned my previous work helping startup founders, but it didn't mention Bennett by name. He'd become irrelevant to my story. The legal proceedings against Bennett dragged on for over a year. He eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges, paid massive fines, and served 6 months in a minimum security facility. I only knew this because Tasha's cousin, who worked in legal circles, mentioned it casually one day. Did you hear about your ex-husband? 6 months in federal prison for tax fraud. I heard, I said. How's your new job going? We moved on to other topics. Bennett was just background noise in a conversation about real life, real work, real accomplishments. 2 years after our divorce, I was invited to speak at a major tech conference about financial strategy for emerging companies. The audience was packed with founders, investors, and industry leaders. I gave my presentation wearing my green suit, talking about sustainable growth and honest business practices. I discussed the importance of integrity in financial management, of transparency with investors and partners, of building businesses on solid foundations instead of deception. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. Afterwards, dozens of people approached me for business cards, asking to schedule consultations. Several said they'd specifically come to the conference to hear me speak. Your reputation in the industry is incredible, one founder said. Everyone says if you want honest, intelligent financial advice, Amara Patterson is the person to call. That night, I sat in my hotel room looking out at the city lights, thinking about how far I'd come. From the woman standing frozen at table 7, watching her world collapse, to this. A successful entrepreneur, respected consultant, and industry speaker. The legal victory wasn't just about the settlement money or about Bennett facing consequences for his fraud. The real victory was building a life so full of purpose and success that his betrayal became just a footnote in my larger story. I took a photo of the city skyline and sent it to Tasha with a caption. "Remember when you asked if I'd be okay? I'm better than okay. I'm thriving." Her response came immediately, "You always were. You just needed him gone to see it." She was right. Bennett hadn't made me successful. He'd just been in the way of my success. And now that he was gone, there was nothing holding me back. The next morning, I flew home to find an email from a major venture capital firm. "Ms. Patterson, we've been following your work in the tech startup community. We're looking for a chief financial consultant to help evaluate potential investments and mentor our portfolio companies. Would you be interested in discussing an advisory position?" I read the email 3 times. This was one of the top VC firms in the country. The salary they mentioned was double what I'd ever made. The opportunity was incredible. I accepted a meeting, negotiated terms that valued my expertise appropriately, and within 2 weeks had signed a consulting agreement that would change my career trajectory completely. The woman who'd invested everything in Bennett's failing startup was now being paid handsomely to advise major investors on which startups were worth backing. The irony wasn't lost on me. At my first meeting with the VC firm's partners, one of them mentioned having worked with Bennett's company years ago. "Dodged a bullet there," he said casually. "The financials looked good on paper, but something about the founder seemed off. Turned out we were right to pass." "Trust your instincts," I said. "They're usually right." He had no idea he was talking to Bennett's ex-wife. I didn't enlighten him. That part of my life was over, filed away in the past where it belonged. What mattered now was the future I was building. The success I was earning. The life I was creating that had nothing to do with anyone except myself. The legal victory had vindicated me publicly. But the real victory was private, knowing I'd survived, rebuilt, and thrived. Knowing that walking away from someone who used me was the best decision I'd ever made. Knowing that my worth wasn't dependent on someone else recognizing it. I was enough on my own. I always had been. It just took losing everything to finally see it. 18 months after my divorce was final, I was living a life I'd never imagined possible during my marriage. My consulting firm had grown from just me to a team of 5. We had office space in a modern building downtown with views that reminded me daily of how far I'd come. My mornings started with coffee on my apartment balcony, watching the city wake up. No more rushing to second jobs. No more scrambling to cover bills Bennett should have been paying. No more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Just peace, purpose, progress. The venture capital advisory position had opened doors I didn't know existed. I was traveling to conferences, meeting with founders, evaluating business models, and getting paid extremely well to do work I genuinely loved. More importantly, I was doing it all on my own terms. No one was using me for connections or expertise. No one was taking credit for my work. Every success was mine, earned through competence and integrity. One Thursday afternoon, I was reviewing financial projections for a potential investment when my assistant buzzed me. "Amara, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's personal." "Who is it?" "She said her name is Claire and that you'd remember her from Bennett's company." I frowned, trying to place the name. Claire. Then it clicked. Claire had been Bennett's first employee, a talented developer he'd hired when the company was just getting started. I'd helped interview her, actually, back when I was still involved in every aspect of the business. "Send her in," I said, curious. Claire walked into my office looking nervous but determined. She was maybe 30, with short hair and anxious energy. "Hi, Amara. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is strange. Have a seat. What's going on?" She sat down, clutching her purse in her lap. "I've been thinking about reaching out for months. I wanted to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For not saying something when I should have. About Bennett. About how he treated you." She took a deep breath. "I knew things weren't right. I saw him out with Sienna multiple times when he claimed he was working late. I knew he was taking credit for your financial models and presenting them as his own work. I knew he was using your money to fund the company while telling investors he was self-funded. And I said nothing. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I quit 2 months ago. I couldn't work there anymore knowing what I knew. And I realized I needed to apologize to you directly. You deserved better. From him, obviously, but also from everyone around him who saw what was happening and stayed silent." I studied her for a moment. Her apology seemed genuine, her regret real. "I appreciate you saying this," I said finally. "But you weren't responsible for Bennett's choices. He was an adult who made his own decisions." "I know. But silence enables bad behavior. I should have at least told you what I was seeing. Given you information so you could make informed choices about your marriage and your investments." "You're right about that," I agreed. "But I'm okay now. Better than okay, actually. Bennett's betrayal forced me to rebuild my life, and this life is better than anything I had when we were together." Claire smiled slightly. "I can see that. Everyone in the industry talks about your success, about how honest and skilled you are. It's impressive." "Thank you. Is there something else you needed?" "Actually, yes. I'm starting my own company. A software development firm. I have the technical skills, but I'm terrible at business strategy and financial planning. I was wondering if you'd be willing to consult with me. I understand if you don't want to work with anyone associated with Bennett, but I thought I'd ask." I considered it. Claire had enabled Bennett's behavior through silence, true. But she'd also been a young employee in a difficult position, probably afraid of losing her job if she spoke up. And now she was trying to make things right. "Send me your business plan," I said. "I'll review it and let you know if I think I can help." Her face brightened. "Really? Thank you. I promise I'll be completely transparent about everything. No hidden finances, no misleading projections, just honest work. That's all I require from my clients. Honesty and a genuine commitment to building sustainable businesses." After Claire left, I sat at my desk thinking about the encounter. People from Bennett's past kept emerging, wanting to apologize or distance themselves or explain their silence. I appreciated it mostly, but I also didn't need it. I'd made peace with what happened. I'd stopped needing validation from others about who was right and who was wrong. The truth was obvious to anyone paying attention, and for those who weren't paying attention, their opinion didn't matter to me. That weekend I took myself on a trip. Solo travel to the mountains, 3 days of hiking and beautiful scenery in complete solitude. I'd learned to enjoy my own company during the divorce process, and now I actively sought it out. There was something powerful about being alone by choice rather than through abandonment. About enjoying silence because it was peaceful, not because it was empty. On the second day of my trip, I hiked to a summit with views that stretched for miles. I sat on a rock eating trail mix and thinking about everything that had led to this moment. If Bennett hadn't betrayed me, would I have ever started my own firm? Would I have pushed for the recognition and compensation I deserved? Would I have built a life this full and successful? Probably not. I'd have stayed comfortable in my supporting role, funding his dreams while ignoring my own. His betrayal had been the catalyst I needed to realize my own potential. To stop settling. To stop making myself small so someone else could feel big. In that sense, Table 7 was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not the betrayal itself, but the clarity it forced. The moment when I could no longer pretend or ignore or excuse. The moment when I had to choose myself. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the view, then sent it to Tasha with a message. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Her response came an hour later. "You got yourself there. I just held your hand while you did the hard work. Proud of you always." Back in the city Monday morning, I had back-to-back meetings with clients. 2 startups seeking financial strategy guidance. 1 established company looking to restructure their operations. All of them had chosen my firm because of my reputation for honest, intelligent work. During lunch, I reviewed Claire's business plan. It was actually quite good. Her technical vision was solid, her market research was thorough, and her financial projections were realistic. She just needed help refining the business model and creating sustainable growth strategies. I sent her an email. "Your plan has potential. Let's schedule a consultation to discuss partnership structure and revenue models. My rates are below. Looking forward to working with you." Building something good from the wreckage of Bennett's company felt satisfying in a way I couldn't quite articulate. Taking someone he'd worked with and helping them succeed ethically felt like poetic justice. That evening, I attended a networking event for women entrepreneurs in tech. The room was full of intelligent, accomplished women building impressive businesses. Several approached me, recognizing my name from articles or conference presentations. "I heard you speak last year about sustainable growth strategies," one woman said. "It completely changed how I approach my business finances." "Your article about integrity in business relationships should be required reading for every founder," another added. These conversations filled me with pride. Not because I needed external validation, but because I'd worked hard to build a reputation worth having. Because I'd chosen honesty and competence over shortcuts and deception. Near the end of the event, a young woman approached me nervously. "Miss Patterson? I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to ask your advice. I'm trying to start my own consulting firm, but I'm afraid I'm not experienced enough. How did you know you were ready?" I smiled at her. She reminded me of myself 3 years ago. Capable but uncertain. Skilled but lacking confidence. I wasn't ready, I admitted. I started my firm in the middle of a divorce, with no clients lined up and no safety net. But I did it anyway because I knew I could figure it out as I went. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be willing to learn. That's terrifying. It is. But it's also liberating. Starting something of your own means you get to decide what success looks like. You get to build something that reflects your values and your vision. That's worth the fear. She thanked me and walked away looking thoughtful. I hoped she'd take the leap. The world needed more women willing to bet on themselves. Driving home that night, I thought about how different my life looked compared to 2 years ago. Then, I'd been married and miserable, working multiple jobs to fund someone else's dreams, pretending everything was fine when it was falling apart. Now, I was single and successful, running a thriving business, respected in my industry and genuinely happy with my life. The rebuild hadn't been easy. There were lonely nights and moments of doubt. Times when I questioned whether I could actually do this alone. Times when I missed having a partner, even if that partner had been using me. But I'd pushed through all of it. I'd built something real and lasting in mine. And in doing so, I discovered that I didn't need anyone else to complete me or validate me or give my life meaning. I was complete on my own. Validated by my own accomplishments. My life had meaning because I'd given it meaning through purposeful work and authentic relationships. Bennett had taught me that lesson, though not in the way he'd intended. By using me, by betraying me, by showing me exactly what I didn't want, he'd forced me to discover what I did want. And what I wanted was this. Independence. Success built on my own terms. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than utility. A life that reflected my values instead of someone else's needs. I pulled into my parking garage, grabbed my briefcase and headed up to my apartment. Tomorrow I had 3 client meetings, a conference call with the VC firm, and lunch with Tasha. My calendar was full of things that mattered to me. My life was exactly what I'd rebuilt it to be. Honest. Purposeful. Mine. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. 2 years after my divorce was final, I found myself back at Giovanni's Italian restaurant for the first time since the night that changed everything. I hadn't planned to return. The place held too many memories, both good and terrible. But a client had insisted on meeting there. He was a founder I was considering advising, and he'd made the reservation before I could suggest somewhere else. So I'd agreed, telling myself it was just a restaurant. Just a building. Just a place. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my favorite blue dress and carrying myself with the confidence I'd earned through 2 years of hard work and harder choices. The hostess stand was staffed by someone I didn't recognize. Rebecca, the kind hostess who'd told me the truth that night, had moved on. "Reservation for Patterson," I said. The young man checked his computer. "Your guest hasn't arrived yet. Would you like to wait at the bar or be seated?" I hesitated, old memories flooding back. "Seat me, please." He led me through the restaurant. Past couples sharing pasta and wine. Past families celebrating birthdays. Past the archway where I'd once stood frozen, watching my marriage implode. And past table 7. A young couple sat there now, laughing over appetizers. They looked happy, genuine, like people who actually loved each other. I felt nothing when I looked at that table. No pain. No anger. Just a distant acknowledgement that something had happened there once, in what felt like someone else's life. The host seated me at a different table near the window with a beautiful view of the street. "Your server will be right with you. Can I get you anything to drink while you wait?" "Red wine." "Your house cab is fine." He nodded and left. I sat alone, looking around the restaurant properly for the first time. It was just a restaurant. Nice ambience, good smells, nothing magical or terrible. Just a place where people ate food. My phone buzzed with a text from my client. "Running 10 minutes late. So sorry." "No problem. Take your time." I sipped my wine when it arrived, watching the evening crowd come and go. A proposal happened 3 tables away, but it was genuine this time. The woman cried happy tears. Her friends appeared from nowhere with flowers and champagne. It was sweet, uncomplicated joy. I found myself smiling at their happiness. Not with bitterness or cynicism, but with genuine pleasure that some people got it right. That some relationships were built on truth instead of deception. My client arrived 20 minutes late, apologetic and flustered. We ordered food and spent 2 hours discussing his business model, his growth projections, and his vision for sustainable expansion. "I've talked to several consultants," he said over dessert. "But everyone says if I want honest advice I should talk to you. Your reputation for integrity is unmatched." "I appreciate that. Integrity matters in business. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Can I ask you something personal? And feel free to tell me it's none of my business." I waited. "I heard you used to be married to Bennett Crawford. That you helped build his company before you started your own firm. People say he used you, that you left and built something better alone. Is that true?" I considered how to answer. The old me would have deflected, changed the subject, pretended it wasn't a big deal. But I wasn't that person anymore. "Yes, it's true. I invested significant money and expertise into his company while we were married. He used that investment to build something successful, then betrayed me while planning to move on to better funding sources through a relationship with someone else. I discovered the truth, left, and started my own firm. That must have been devastating." It was, for a while. But it also freed me to build something that was actually mine. Something that reflected my values and my vision. So in a strange way, his betrayal was the best thing that could have happened to my career. That's a remarkably healthy perspective. I smiled. It took time to get here. But yes, I'm grateful now for everything that happened. It taught me what I was capable of when I stopped waiting for someone else's approval. We finished dinner discussing his business needs. I agreed to take him on as a client. He paid the bill, insisting it was a business expense, and we walked out together into the cool evening air. "Thank you for meeting me here," he said. "I didn't realize this place had history for you. If I'd known, I would have suggested somewhere else." "It's fine. Actually, it was good to come back. To realize it's just a restaurant. The bad memories don't have power over me anymore." He shook my hand and left. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking back at Giovanni's. Through the window I could see table 7. See people enjoying their evening. See life continuing in a place that had once felt like the end of my world. But it hadn't been the end. It had been a beginning. I walked to my car feeling lighter than I had in years. The ghost of that night 2 years ago had finally been laid to rest. I'd returned to the scene of my worst moment and felt nothing except gratitude for how far I'd come. Driving home, I thought about everything that had happened since table 7. The divorce, the business, the rebuild, the success, the discovery of my own strength. I'd started as someone's wife, someone's resource, someone's stepping stone. I'd become my own person, successful on my own terms, respected for my own work, happy in my own life. The woman who'd stood frozen at table 7, watching her marriage collapse, wouldn't recognize the woman I'd become. That Amara had been afraid, uncertain, dependent on someone else for validation and purpose. This Amara was independent, confident, and completely sure of her own worth. Back at my apartment, I poured another glass of wine and stepped onto my balcony. The city lights stretched out below me, beautiful and full of possibility. My phone buzzed with a message from Tasha. "Dinner tomorrow? I want to hear about the Giovanni's visit." It was fine. Actually better than fine. "I'll tell you tomorrow. Proud of you for going back. Proud of myself too." And I was. Proud of surviving. Proud of rebuilding. Proud of becoming someone I actually liked and respected. The next evening, I met Tasha at a new restaurant downtown. One with no history, no memories, just good food and better company. "So how was it really?" she asked over appetizers. "Going back there? Honestly, it was anticlimactic. I kept waiting for some big emotional moment, but it never came. It was just a restaurant where something bad happened once. That's all. That's growth. That's healing. It is. I realized I've built such a full life that Bennett and that night are just footnotes now. They don't define me anymore. They never should have defined you. But I'm glad you see that now." We ate and talked and laughed. About work, about life, about her kids and my business and everything that mattered to us now. Bennett's name never came up except for that one mention. He'd become irrelevant to my story. A week later, I was featured in another business article. This one was titled "Financial Consultants Who Changed the Game: Amara Patterson's Rise to Industry Leadership." The article discussed my firm, my approach to consulting, and my reputation for integrity. It mentioned that I'd started my business during a difficult personal period but had built it into one of the most respected firms in the region. Patterson's clients describe her as brutally honest, incredibly skilled, and completely trustworthy. In an industry where many consultants overpromise and underdeliver, she's known for doing exactly what she says she'll do. I didn't frame this article. I didn't need to. It was just another acknowledgement of what I already knew. That I'd built something worthwhile. That I was good at what I did. That honesty and competence were their own rewards. 3 years to the day after I saw Bennett at table 7, I took myself out to dinner. Not to Giovanni's, not anywhere with history. Just to a nice place with a view and excellent wine. I ordered a meal meant for one person. I drank wine chosen for my own taste. I enjoyed food I liked without considering anyone else's preferences. And I toasted myself. To survival. To strength. To knowing my worth. To building a life that was entirely, authentically, completely mine. The waiter came to clear my plates. Celebrating something special? Yes. My independence. He smiled, not understanding but appreciating the sentiment. Well, congratulations. Can I bring you dessert? Yes. The chocolate cake. And another glass of wine. Celebrating properly then? Exactly. I sat there alone as the evening deepened, watching the city through the windows, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. If Bennett hadn't betrayed me, I'd probably still be married. Still working multiple jobs to fund his dreams. Still making myself small so he could feel big. Still believing that being useful was the same as being loved. But he had betrayed me. He'd shown me exactly who he was. And in doing so, he'd freed me to become exactly who I was meant to be. So in the end, table 7 hadn't destroyed me. It had remade me. And the woman sitting here now, celebrating her independence over chocolate cake and expensive wine, was better than any version of herself that had existed before. I was single by choice. Successful by design. Happy by intention. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then decided to check. This is Bennett. I know I shouldn't contact you, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better. I hope you're doing well. I read the message twice. 3 years ago, that apology would have meant everything. It would have validated my pain, acknowledged his wrongdoing, given me closure. Now it meant nothing. I deleted the message without responding. He didn't get to apologize. He didn't get to ease his conscience. He didn't get to be part of my story anymore in any way, including redemption. He was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd taught me what I didn't want. Someone who'd accidentally pushed me toward the life I actually needed. I finished my cake, paid my bill, and walked out into the night. My car was parked 2 blocks away. I walked slowly, enjoying the evening air, feeling completely at peace. Tomorrow I had meetings with 4 potential clients. Next week I was flying to a conference where I was the keynote speaker. Next month I was taking a 2-week vacation to Europe, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time or money for when I was married. My calendar was full of things I chose. My bank account was full of money I earned. My life was full of purpose and meaning I'd created. And none of it had anything to do with Bennett Crawford or the man he'd pretended to be or the lies he'd built our marriage on. I got in my car and drove home through the city I loved, to the apartment I'd bought myself, to the life I'd built from scratch. The truth had won. Not because I'd destroyed him or because karma had punished him, though both of those things had happened. The truth had won because I'd chosen to live it. To build my life on honesty and integrity. To value myself enough to walk away from people who didn't. To know that I was enough on my own. That night, I stood on my balcony one last time before bed, looking out at the city lights and thinking about table 7. Thank you, I thought. Not to Bennett, but to that moment. To the clarity it forced. To the strength it required. To the life it made possible. Thank you for showing me the truth. Thank you for giving me the courage to walk away. Thank you for teaching me that being alone is better than being used. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face, excited for tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that. Because my life was finally, completely, authentically mine. And there was nothing sweeter than that kind of freedom.